David is an actuary. I was trying to figure out what David, I was trying to figure out what do you call, is it an actuariist? And then I
Well,
looked it up. It's just
uh,
actuary, right?
all right, a actuary is defined as really within the exam taking mode. And an actuary that is truly accomplished will achieve a fellow in the Society of Action. That's 10 exams, and they're very, very hard exams and very, very highly respected people. 5 exams is an associate actuary, and these exams are obviously difficult on the way to becoming a fellow in the society, and you're known as an associate. Then others are in an exam taking mode under Dr. Cohn. All right. Um, Actuary can call themselves an actuary and not have any exams. But from that standpoint, the most respected part of the actuarial field are 5 exams and 10 exams.
Got it.
And now an actuary will measure uh, uh, periods of time in a different way than an accountant. An accountant will measure it in a 1 year, 2 year, or 3 year segment. And in projecting results, we'll do it in what's called a deterministic way. We're going to project it at 5%, we'll project it at 6%, maybe 3%, but whatever they're projected, they usually do it at a fixed period of time. An actuary, among other things, has the ability to project on a present value basis. In other words, what's the future value and present value of this current operation? And that's far, far more detailed, and that's called stochastic modeling. So they will determine it on a deterministic basis, which is basically a great big average, but it's rolling the dice. That, among other things, like pension valuation, uh, healthcare uh, costing analysis, life insurance, mortality and morbidity table. Each of these is a separate discipline within the actuarial field, and it's very difficult exam, but very highly paid. Any of those folks that I presented to at Dr. Cohn's uh, class will probably be in the area starting salaries of 50 to 75,000 right out of college.
David, you said that mathematicians are musicians, and this is my segue into your musical career. But can you explain to the listeners why, because you are a mathematician and economics person, why mathematicians are musicians?
You know, you ask difficult questions, and I know that's why you have this program. As good as you are, I'm going to have trouble answering that only because some of the biggest mathematicians in our history were also musicians, like Einstein and Mozart. Uh, Numbers and music were very easy for me. Um, and I don't know why. I can't tell you why that is. But if you suggest to a mathematician that they should play music, I don't know that it is easily accomplished as if you suggest to a musician to become a mathematician. I mean, I think if you go one way, music to math might be easier than math to music. And I'm not sure why that is. It just makes sense.
Who in the top, give us your top three or four of these artists and bands that you were with, because you've got so many. I mean, you got the Motown bands, you've got, I mean, just you take it. I don't even know where to start with all of this. Tom Jones. I mean, dude, you're famous.
Now, actually, you know who was famous, and I really have to give him credit. Um, Jerry Lewis was a very generous leader of the band. Um, he did not have to have us. We had a band, but I think he probably could have gone off on his own without having anybody like us in the band. He could have had side men, and then he would be the key person. But he was generous enough to share royalties with us when he did not have to do it. So he really was the key to the band. And after that, we went to Sunset Studios and did a lot of records. We had 7 records when I was with them, and 3 long playing albums. And they went on, and I went back to school because of Vietnam. I did not want to be an officer in infantry. I was in ROTC, so I had to return to school or go to Vietnam, and I took the easier choice.
David B. Walker is my guest today. The actuary speaks the value of human capital. What does that mean? Well, we'll talk about that in a second here. David, I made the note of talking about your radio host, and we're talking about your career as a musician in your younger days, and we didn't finish the thread. I didn't come back to it, and I apologize for that. I want to talk about your quick foray into the entertainment business, because you went into the guitar playing and you became a DJ in Hawaii. Talk about that for a second, because you were the weatherman in Hawaii. How tough a gig was that?
Was one of the, that's why they hired me. I hardly got paid anything because all you had to do was look outside and see the weather. And it was always the same. It rained at noon, and after it rained, it got sunny, and then the sun went down at about 8 o'clock. It was wonderful.
How did you score a gig like that in Hawaii of all places? How did that happen?
Well, you've got to remember, this was 1966 or so, and things weren't as developed in Hawaii as they are now. So I just ran into somebody at the Davy Jones Walker bar, and we were talking, and he learned about, I had just left the band. And so I think he made the connection that, well, if you're a band and a performer, you obviously can do something on radio. And so it was I said yes when I probably should have said nothing.
Do you have anything you could talk about with Glenn Campbell and how good of a player was? Was he as good as they say?
Yeah, yeah. Maybe you should have heard him. Maybe at some point you should listen to the fact that he played the William Tell Overture on his guitar, and he was just an excellent guitar player. He was a studio player. He played with a lot of studio players and behind a lot of groups that you probably didn't know. Like even the studio guitar player for the Beach Boys. Okay, and he played with a group called the Wrecking Crew, and he was on a lot of records that people didn't even know he was playing. He was just a studio musician. He wrote songs, and he was a very nice guy. I mean, really approachable, wasn't arrogant, and just a really, really solid guy.
Talk about the why is people understanding the value of human capital and diversity. Why is this so important for us to have a culture moving forward in our country?
My father taught me diversity. He was a flight instructor for some of the Tuskegee Airmen. And as such, I was raised without.
Your dad taught the Tuskegee Airmen.
Yes, he did.
Wow.
And I grew up with racism not being a part of our family at all. My father was very much against racism and taught some of the airmen how to fly, and actually some of them were escorts to the bombers. So he's the guy that started me out on diversity. He would not stand for racism in any form. I just took it from there and then developed into music. And when you're playing music with somebody like B.B. King, or when you're playing with Ahmad Jamal, or listening to him, or you're listening to Chuck Berry, no one cares what color you are. If you're a musician, you're equal. You're dedicated to the music, and so that was the joy I had, because it was an easy transition for me. I was already non-racist, and it just fit in greatly. And they could see it in my eyes, and they can see it in the way I related to them.
What do you mean by that? When you say the rise of diversity dedication, what does that mean to you?
What it means to me is I started with being non-racist. Then I became dedicated to diversity. And then I began to see how that fit into the human capital model of a business. you have 8% or 6% minority, and then the rest white, or you have a different mix. And what does that mean for the value of the corporation? And how do I create a metric that would measure that value so I could see how the inclusion of different races would impact profits? And that's what interests me the most.
Today, everybody, the actuary speaks the value of human capital, and now we're talking about human capital. Why, in heaven's name, if we have all these mergers in the world and you see these companies buying each other up all the time, you hear about these, you hear about these structured plans where people come in and buy you up, or they're hostile or they're non-hostile takeovers or whatever. But why you said that 70% of mergers fail? That's a lot. That's a big number. I mean,
Well,
these people.
let's define fail.
Okay, let's define fail.
Fail means they did not meet the initial expectations of the merger or the acquisition. If you're expecting this profit level and this kind of result to happen, and you get this result, you spend a lot of money to get this result, and a lot of people leave, or something happens, and there's a workers' comp problems. You know, they don't work to the extent of the expectation of both companies. And that's a very, very bad number. It could be a lot better if they had the value of 50 to 75% of the assets that walk out the door that are not valued on the balance sheet.
Why was that an important point? Because you have that as one of your bullets. Can you please explain why that's so important? I think most of us understand that there's there's reasoning behind this, but from an actuarial perspective, why is that so important?
Not so much from an actuarial experience, but from a human resource experience. I have done work at Howard University on diversity and profitability, and that study was over a period of 3 or 4 years. And the bottom line is, in short, for you, is that the more diverse a company is, the more profitable it is.
What would you like to leave the listeners with?
I'm not sure. I'd have to say, find out what you do best, and then find out what you do better. Link those two together and see if there's a way that you can create synergy, no matter what it is. If it's music or math, if it's dancing or singing, if it's football and or soccer. But be an athlete in all ways, be a mathematician that's also someone who reads. Try to link these things up to see if there's synergy in them that will be greater than the whole.
Great to have David B. Walker on. He is an amazing guy who I met, and he is just a great dude. And with his, let me tell you, the guy is Cornerstone Consulting Group, KPMG Pete, William Mercer, all of these giant companies, Wharton School of Business. These are the kind of people that I love talking to because they're so smart. And David Walker is a smart guy. Until next time, everybody, I'm Papa Tom. Have a great day. Peace out. Love y'all.